Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. Oh, I'm Scott, and welcome to the Prog Corner's ranking of the Jethro Tull albums. Yeah, if you clicked onto this video, you don't need me to tell you about the history of the band or any of that kind of nonsense. And that's a good thing, too, because we've got 23 albums to rip through here, so you don't need to hear me go on and on about how they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The only thing I want to do in preface to this video is there's a couple records we are not going to be ranking. Obviously, the great 1972 compilation album, Living in the Past. This got all the way to number 3 on the US charts. We're not ranking it. Also, the 1978 live album, Bursting Out. What a great live album. One of the best live albums of all time. Obviously not ranking it. It's a live album. So here we go. Without any further ado, at number 23, it's Rock Island from 1989. This is their 17th album, hot on the heels of Jethro Tull winning their Grammy Award for Crest of the Knave. They decided to do a rock album, and this is just not a great album at all. Clearly, I went and looked at a lot of other people's Jethro Tull rankings this morning, and Rock Island is deservedly at the bottom of a lot of lists. Kissing Willie is just one of the worst songs I've ever heard. This album got to number 56 in the US. I don't know how, but there is a couple songs that are decent. I like the title track. Undressed to Kill's okay, but really it's not a good album. At number 22, from 1991, it's Catfish Rising. Yeah, this is their follow-up to Rock Island, and it's slightly better, I guess. A little more R&B, a little more blues on this record. It hit number 88 in the US, number 27 in the UK. This was Andrew Giddings' first album with the band on keyboards as a full-fledged member. The songs I like best on this weren't even on the album. When Jesus Came to Play and White Innocence were on bonus discs. But of the songs on the album proper, I guess Occasional Demons I like. Sparrow on the Schoolyard Wall's decent, but just not a whole lot of there on this one. At number 21, it's the Christmas album. Yeah, I am ranking the Christmas album because it is all new versions and in some cases new songs, but there were a lot of re-recordings of older songs. You have the Christmas song that was recorded for ended up on Living in the Past. Another Christmas song was on Rock Island. Jack Frost and the Hooded Crow was a bonus track off of Broadsword and the Beast. Weathercock from Heavy Horses. Fire at Midnight, Ring Out Solstice Bells were from Songs from the Wood. Beret from Stand Up. Just incredible. A great album. I listen to it every holiday season. At number 20, it's the Zealot Gene from 2022, the band's 22nd album. And this was their comeback album. All the people that have been working with Ian on his solo stuff appear here. So is it really a Jethro Tull album or is it an Ian Anderson solo album? What's the difference, man? I really can't tell you. You got Dave Goodyear on bass, John O'Hara on keyboards, Scott Hammond on drums. You know, we've had two guys in Jethro Tull with the last name Hammond and neither one plays keyboards. Some really good tracks on here. Mine is The Mountain is the Keeper. Shoshana Sleeping is great. In Visitation, really, really good. That's my number 20. At number 19, it's Roots to Branches from 1995. This was their 19th album, and it was kind of a return to form after two really iffy albums, but there's a different vibe on here, more folk and Indian, Arabic music, kind of whole Eastern feel to this thing. This album only got to 114 in the US, but somehow got to number 20 in the UK. This was their last album on Chrysalis. So the lineup here, you've got Ian Anderson, Martin Barr, Don Perry are the three main guys. This was the last album with Dave Pegg on bass. You got some cat named Steve Bailey filling in on some other tracks. And you've got Andrew Giddings, although he's not a full-fledged member at this point. He's on this record. Wounded, Old, and Treacherous is a good song. That was followed up by At Last Forever. Those two tracks together are like 15 minutes, so it's like a kind of like a mini epic right there. It's decent. At number 18, it's the despised JTull.com from 1999. As I was going through listening to all the Tull records over the weekend, this is the one that actually was like, man, this is a little better than I remembered. I fully expected this to be at the absolute bottom of the list, and it's not. It's actually got some decent stuff. Spiral is a good song. .com is cool. You've even got female vocals in there. Hunt by Numbers is a fun song. What's weird is on the CD, you've got an ad for Ian Anderson's new solo album at the end, The Secret Language of Birds, which is just kind of bizarre, but hey, whatever. Just ignore the name of the album and the album cover, and you might actually enjoy it. At number 17, we mentioned it earlier, it's The Crest of the Knave from 1987, the album that denied Metallica from getting a Grammy Award for Injustice for All. But save your tears, boys and girls. Metallica's won like 14 Grammys since, so, they don't need anybody feeling sorry for them about that. It really wasn't that big a deal. Some good tracks on here. Steel Monkey, Farm on the Freeway, cool. Got a couple rockers like Jumpstart and Raising Steam, but clearly it's Budapest. The best song that Dire Straits never wrote is the highlight of this album. At number 16, we're going to the debut album from 1968. This was a whole different band. They were definitely a blues band at this point. Mick Abrahams is in the band. Dharma for One's a cool song. You've got the claghorn that Jeffrey Hammond claims that he invented. Song for Jeffrey. There's all these songs for Jeffrey on these early albums. He wasn't even in the band yet because Glenn Cornick was the bass player at this point. Dee Palmer, Clyde Bunker completes the band. Cool album, but not my favorite. This hit number 62 in the US and number 10 in the UK. At number 15, it's the most recent Jethro Tull album, Rock Flute. Yeah, this came out earlier in the year and I reviewed it and I really did like it. Originally, this was supposed to be an instrumental-only album. Ian Anderson's voice clearly not what it used to be, but there are some really good tracks on here, man. Hammer on Hammer is awesome. The Navigators is cool. And Gnungagap is my favorite song on this album. Hard to pronounce, but it's even harder to forget. At number 14, it's The Broadsword and the Beast. Yeah, this was the album that a lot of Tull fans were waiting for in 1982. After I think people wanted a little bit more of a Tull kind of sound, and the album cover definitely gave you all those kind of vibes because it's just a really great record, a great album cover. It's actually Steve Hackett's favorite Jethro Tull album, which is pretty cool. Beastie's a great song. That was originally going to be the title of the album. Falling on Hard Times, Pussy Willow, fantastic. I can probably do without Watching Me, Watching You. It's all right. You've got Gary Conway on drums here. He only appeared on 2 Jethro Tull albums, this one and Crest of a Knave. He would have appeared on the one that came out in the middle, but there were no drums on that one. We're going to talk about that one in a minute. At number 13, it's Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die from 1976. A lot of people give this record a hard time. I actually enjoy it. Its only crime is that it was smack dab in the middle of some really great records from the band, so it does kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit. This was supposed to be a musical opera or some sort of thing. This is the first album with John Glasscock on bass, from Carmen, just a real great bass player. This album hit number 14 in the US, number 25 in the UK, and it tells the story of Ray Lomas, who wins some kind of quiz show and gets real depressed and tries to kill himself, gets into a coma. Wakes up from a coma 20 years later and he finds that his greaser ways are back in fashion. So this was kind of like talking about how punk rock had changed the music industry. And if, I guess Ray Lomas is kind of Ian Anderson at some point. But Quiz Kids is a great song. Big Dipper's cool, the Pied Piper. This was recorded in Monte Carlo to avoid tax purposes in the UK. At number 12, it's Under Wraps. Yeah, I think some people are going to be a little surprised I've got this as high as I do from 1984, the band's 15th album. This is a cool record that I really enjoy. It only hit number 76 in the US. I think people were really freaked out by the icy cold keyboards from Peter John Vatisse, the lack of a drummer, everything's on a drum machine. So some people just really didn't like it. But, my friend Matthew from the great Prog band Versa has spoken up, and he said that this was one of his favorite Jethro Tull albums, that it doesn't get the credit it deserves, that, the icy instrumentation found within is actually perfectly suited for the subject matter of the Cold War and espionage, stuff like that. I love Saboteur, great song. Radio Free Moscow is cool. The hit Lap of Luxury is all right. It's just a different sound for Tull, but I actually like it a lot. So thank you, Matthew, for those comments. At number 11, it's A. I really like A, man, but it's probably got something to do with the fact that I'm a big Eddie Jobson fan and his keyboards are fantastic. I could have used a lot more electric violin on this album, actually, but it's just fantastic. You've got Ian Anderson, Martin Barr, Dave Pegg, and you got Mark Craney on drums, and of course the aforementioned Eddie Jobson. This was supposed to be a solo album. Chrysalis put the pressure on him to turn it into a Tull album, and I really like it, man. Crossfire is fantastic. Black Sunday, Protect and Survive, Batteries Not Included, some really cool songs. But now we're getting into the top 10 here, and all of these on the post that I put on my YouTube community tab, and I put a little poll on Twitter. Every one of these had been nominated as someone's favorite, along with this was. So I had 11 different albums that people claimed were their favorite Tull album. So here we go. We're in the top 10. At number 10, it's Stand Up, the sophomore album from 1969. What's it doing this low? Well, this is Jethro Tull, man. They have so many great albums. I feel so bad having Stand Up at number 10. But man, they've got such a great discography. This hit number 1 in the UK, number 20 in the US, clearly announced that Jethro Tull was here. It was recorded in Morgan Studios, and of course, everyone knows Beret off that album, but New Day Yesterday, Look Into the Sun, For a Thousand Mothers, just great. This is Martin Barr's debut album with the band. He had been preceded by Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath, was in the band for like 2 or 3 weeks, but didn't really quite work out. So Martin Barr came in and saved the day at number 9. It's Benefit, their third album from 1970. Sounds a whole lot like Stand Up, actually, but they're using better recording equipment here. Morgan was allowing them to use the better equipment, and this hit number 3 in the UK, number 11 in the US, the first album with John Evan on keyboards, and the last with Glenn Cornick on bass. It had one single that didn't chart, but there's some great songs on here, man. Sun, for Michael Collins, Jeffrey and Me, To Cry You a Song. They even threw Teacher in there for the US release. Benefit's just amazing. I love it. Really pointed to what greatness was in store for the band. At number 8, let's go to the North Sea, man. It's Stormwatch from 1979, the last of the classic Jethro Tull albums with the classic lineup. After this album, John Glasscock died, Barry Barlow quit the band, John Evan quit the band, Dee Palmer got fired. So this was the last go-around of the classic Tull lineup, and it's incredible, man. Hit number 22 in the US, number 27 in the UK, and it's got songs like Dark Ages, Orion, North Sea Oil. So, the songs here are more seafaring, and they seem to have more of a ecological bend to it, but it was such an incredible record. I really wish they would have done more, but they had some good stuff after they, had all those lineup changes, whatever. At number 7, let's go to 1974 and War Child, an album that was born from a lot of strife from the previous album. So this is a much looser affair, a loose batch of songs, but there's some great songs on here. Skating Away on the Thin Ice of a New Day, Bungle in the Jungle, Queen and Country, The Third Hurrah. I really like this album a lot. It hit number 2 in the US, number 14 in the UK. And again, it's just got that great lineup of Ian Anderson, Martin Barr, John Evan, Jeffrey Hammond, and Barry Barlow. fantastic. The strings on here are really cool. Dee Palmer does a great job on this record. It's underrated in my opinion. At number 6, let's go to Heavy Horses, 1978's brilliant album about the British countryside. Ian Anderson said this was a record that he made, and he was very cognizant the whole time he was making it to try to not sound like the Police, to try to not sound like the Stranglers. This album hit number 19 in the US, number 20 in the UK, and it's just amazing. It's got The Mouse Police Never Sleeps and No Lullaby. That title track is great. Weathercock is fantastic. Ian had built a new studio, so this is the first album in his new digs in the UK. This is also the first album that you start hearing some trouble with Ian's voice, which would just get progressively worse and worse as time goes on. At number 5, its predecessor, Songs from the Wood from 1977. Man, when this thing came out, I was so into it. 1977 was an amazing year for little mini comeback records. Going for the One came out that year. Just such an amazing year for prog. This was Jethro Tull's 10th studio album, recorded at Morgan, hit number 8 in the US, number 13 in the UK, the first of the three that we like to call the folk trilogy. Wow, what great songs. It starts with that title track, Jack in the Green, Hunting Girl, Velvet Green, Pibroch, Cap in Hand. Every track is a keeper. I love this album. It's just amazing. At number 4, Minstrel in the Gallery's getting this spot from 1975, the band's 8th album. I love this album. It's such a cool record. Hit number 7 in the US, number 20 in the UK. This was also recorded in Monte Carlo to escape the tax regime of the UK. This was the last album with Jeffrey Hammond. He was replaced by John Glasscock, obviously. The title track on this is just incredible. Cold Wind of Valhalla is amazing. But you know why this album is at number 4. It's that amazing epic Baker Street Muse, clocking in at almost 17 minutes. And it's one of the best things Jethro Tull ever did. And that's a fact. Now we're in the top 3, and this was actually pretty hard. I love these 3 albums. They're almost, flip a 3-sided coin type of deal here, but at number 3, I'm going with A Passion Play from 1973, their 6th album that tells the story of Ronnie Pilgrim. This hit number 1 in the US, which is just incredible because its predecessor, Thick as a Brick, also hit number 1 in the US. 2 albums with only 1 song on them, making such a splash on the Billboard charts. Just amazing time, man. The 70s were amazing. Yeah, this album was born of some real trouble at the Chateau d'Orville, or the Honky Chateau, as Elton John called it. The rest of it was recorded in Morgan. I guess they did a couple tracks there. But they had to get away from that Honky Chateau, man. It was just bad news. I guess those sessions have been re-released, and a couple of the songs made it on War Child. I love the little spoken word thing, the hair that lost its spectacles that Jeffrey Hammond quotes out. I think it's a lot of fun and kind of reminds me of Prokofiev. I really do enjoy the soprano sax. There's not a whole lot of flute in here, so it's a whole different sounding album from Jethro Tull, and I just adore it. I love it. Smack dab in the prog era. If people say Jethro Tull's not prog, man, play him A Passion Play and get back to me. At number 2, from 1971, their 4th album, Aqualung. Oh, baby. This has got the songs. This has got the hits. This is that perfect bridge album from their earlier, more bluesy stuff to their more expansive, more experimental stuff that would follow. This is the last album with Clive Bunker, the first with Jeffrey Hammond on bass. You got Terry Ellis producing it. This sucker sold 7 million copies worldwide, and with songs like the title track and Locomotive Breath and Cross-Eyed Mary and Hymn 43 and My God and Wind Up and Mother Goose, every song is amazing. Every song's a keeper, and there's only one Jethro Tull album I like better, and if y'all have been keeping score at home, you know exactly what it is. It's 1972's incomparable Thick as a Brick, one of my favorite albums of all time. Man, I remember walking into a Spencer's Gifts at Brookfield Square Mall outside of Milwaukee back. It was probably 75. And one of the employees was playing this on a turntable in the back room. I'm like, what am I even hearing? Because I had just found out about Yes, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks earlier. And then I'm hearing this. So I had to run down to the record store and buy it real quick. And Jethro Tull became one of my favorite bands. And that was a long, long time ago. And they're still one of my favorite bands, man. 23 albums strong. There's no sign of stopping these guys. Yeah, their last couple records weren't as good as their 70s output, but they've been putting out phenomenal music for 55 years here, people. Yeah. Anyway, so that is my wrap up of the great Jethro Tull discography from worst to first. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of my ranking. I know you disagree with it, man, but that's the whole fun of this. With a band as good as Jethro Tull, you have so many different options, but that's how I see it, boys and girls. Anyway, tomorrow I'm going to be doing an album review, a brand new album from a band experiencing major changes. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. Anyway, peace in the Middle East. God save the king. Absolutely save that king, man. King Charles III needs all your help, and we all do. Yeah, pray for us. Pray for the human race. We need your help. Anyway, I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.